Welcome to Math Physio. Let's have a discussion on the important skill of research, that is reading the research paper. And I think it is an important milestone for further conduction of research. So I would like to quote the Kofi Annan statement that literacy is a bridge from misery to hope. So in nutshell, to have a good paper, you must have the good literature on the research. So I would like to introduce two aspects of the research in our field. First is practicality and accessibility. So for the practicality, I would like to question one thing, that will everyone be a researcher? So in answer of this, we recognize that not everyone will be a researcher. Many people have little interest in research per se. In fact, some have decided aversion to it, and thus clinicians and private practitioners have the different path as their career option. However, need for the research cannot be denied. Next important aspect, how community recognize the researcher. So researchers are sometimes viewed as a strange people who deals with the insignificant problem, and while dealing with the insignificant problem, they are out of the touch with this real world. Right? Although we know that none of us thinking in that way, but for the community it is the true, right? So, one of the primary distinction between the trade and the profession is the research only. Trade deals only with how to do something, whereas profession concerns itself not only with how but also with why something should be done in certain manner. Although most of the people in profession recognize the need of the research, but most of those people do not read the research results. And this situation is ubiquitously present in every field. So first question will arise, why most of the people do not read the research? So I guess most of the profession who do not read the research believe that doing so is not necessary, and the research is not practical enough or does not directly pertain to their work. And even on the second hand, they have reasoned out that reading research publication is that they cannot understand them because of language is too technical and the terminology is unfamiliar and use of that confusing word. And I think this complaint is valid. Nevertheless, research literature is extremely difficult for the non-researcher to understand. So I would like to have my basic objective for this reading the research part. First is common problems which are encountered by non-researcher while reading the research, and in line with that, suggestions while reading the research for the non-researcher. So first is, are you agree on this sentence that scientific papers are meant not to be read but to be published? First answer is no, right? But however, unfortunately, we find considerable truth in this observation, and because from the writer's perspective, right, they always write for the benefit of readers and the community. But trying to use this confusing word, the which dazzles the reader and thus create the impression that over the subject matter is historic than it really is. So it makes it complicated than the actual one. And ultimately, it will only benefit for the to the researcher for that particular field. So very small proportion of the number are benefited from that, which is not the intention. Even the problem of the jargon word has been recognized. So in any field, using the jargon word that confounds the outsider. Even it serves as a shorthanded for researcher because they will not explain to community to their results. Even it provides the meaning to the people within the field only, right? And that was the not basic perspective of the writer or the researcher. So researcher want to tell everything, but the community understand a very little thing and in a very confusing manner, right? So using these jargon words are very confusing as well. So I would like to give the example. A simple three-letter word, that na, which has been used in the research with the elegant expression that at this point of time, right? Even researchers never do anything, they always perform. They never start, they always initiate, and they never end, they always terminate. Even I remember one theory from my first year psychology book, that Pavlov's dog theory, in that the simple word drug is being replaced by the complicated word that is chemotherapeutic agent. And by using these words, researchers are very clear what to tell and in the sequence as well and the systematic manner as well. But the people who are reading this research paper, they got confused because of these words. So the need to bridge the gap is compulsory. So there are certain like institute or the association, they have given their hands. One of the example is web pages for the American Kinesiology Association. They have regular session on applied research to explaining to this coaches or the teachers or the fitness or the recreational leaders for explaining their research into the simple terminology. But they are very little. So the gap is still imposing between the researchers and the practitioners or the non-researcher. Even another hurdle is that there is a big stumbling block with statistical analysis. And this word itself frightening someone who is trying to read the research. Are you agree on that? Still not? Then I will give you one example. Explain this. The tetrachorie correlations among the test variables were subjected to centroid factor analysis and orthogonal rotation of the primary axis were accomplished by Zimmerman's graphical method until simple structure and positive manifold were closely approximated. Am I right? It is just and simple correlation and the factor analysis. And they have shown with this graphical presentation. But this type of terminology has been used in the research paper. Over here, I don't critique anyone, right? But it is just and just for giving the example. So keep calm, don't worry too much because I will explain you in this session that how to read the research paper so that you cannot be confused or this jargon words will not hurdle you, right? So there are a few suggestions over here. First is be familiar or have a background of the specific subject. Read only interesting things. Read as a paper, like a newspaper. Even read the abstract. Think in terms of meaningfulness and be critical but objective. But please continue reading. Okay, so I would like to explain each and every suggestions in detail. So for this, first is be familiar. So become familiar with a few publications that contain pertinent research in your field, right? And you might get the help from your professors or librarians, right? So while choosing the publication, you must familiar with that subject. Next is read only the interesting things. Read only studies that are interesting to you. That point may sound too trick to hear, but reading all this stuff may frustrating to you because you are not clear in your mind what you need. So read only the things that are interesting to you. Next is read as a paper. So over here, I just wanted to mention that do not look for the eternal truth. Look for the ideas and indications. No study is proof of anything. Only when it has been verified repeatedly does it constitute the knowledge. Right? So it only read as in paper, while as in newspaper. Right? Do not critique on anything. After that, read the abstract first. This approach saves your time by helping you determining that whether you wish to read the whole thing or not. And if you are still interested, then you can read the study to gain better understanding of the methodology and the interpretations. But remember, do not bog down with the details. Okay? Next is think in terms of meaningfulness. So over here, do not be too concerned about statistical significance. For this, I would like to give the example. Understanding the concept of significance certainly help, but little common sense serves you about as well as knowing the difference between the levels, even the one-tailed test or the two-tailed test. So think in terms of meaningfulness. How it help you, right? So if you are looking into the concepts for the statistical analysis, it will help you, but do not crucial to being able to read the study. Just skip the part while reading the first time. Okay. Next is be critical but objective. You can usually assume that the national journals always selects the paper by jury method. So over here, 2 or 3 qualified individuals read and judge the relevance of the problem and the validity and the reliability of the problem and efficacy of the experimental design and the appropriateness of the statistical analysis. Certainly, some studies are published that should not be done. Yet, if you are not expert in the research, you do not need to be suspicious about the scientific worth of the study. that appears in recognizing journal. Okay. If it is too far removed from any practical application, no need to read. So no need to read the past informations. Okay. Only read about the present things or the contemporary things. Okay. In a nutshell, the more you read, the easier it will become to understand. So reading is important part for the research. Okay. And for the next things, I will explain you the practical aspects of the research paper, how to read, right? So for this, stay tuned and thank you for watching. If you have any queries, write your comments down below. And lastly, like, share and subscribe to my channel. Do not forget to press the bell icon. Stay home, stay